You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers defeated the Maryland Terrapins by a score of 74-64 to end a long 5-game losing streak in the Big Ten. The win elevates Indiana's record to 17-10 overall and 8-9 in the conference. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Kathy Amos and Ryan Phillips, and we'll break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. So let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And for me tonight, the banner moment was being able to respond to the Maryland runs. So there were two key moments in the second half where the start of the second half, Maryland hits a three to tie the game 30-30 after a poor end to the first half that saw Indiana give up a 10-point lead. And at that point, all of the thoughts of knowing how to win could creep back into the team, but they responded and pushed the lead back up to 10. But Maryland has been playing some good basketball recently, and Fats Russell was having a game. And a few shots later, the lead once again got back down to 3. But Indiana found a way to win again and stretch that lead out back to 8 and 10 and kept it there for most of the second half, and then won in the last 4 minutes when they have had some trouble executing in late game situations. They weren't in a pressure situation and were able to pull out the 74-64 win. A lot of individual moments that we'll talk about for sure throughout the show could also have been the banner moments. But for a team that has struggled knowing how to win, this team handled a couple of Maryland runs like good teams should by doing the little things right and putting the ball in the basket and getting a nice 10-point lead. So our banner moment is, as always, brought to you by our friends at Homefield Apparel, now in their 5th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their first as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. As you surely know by now, Homefield has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you'll find anywhere, with beloved logos like 2 different versions of the Bison. And if you support other college teams or have people in your life who do, Homefield probably has something for them too. Their product line now extends to more than 120 different schools with unique vintage logos for all of them. And no matter what you buy, you know it will be comfortable and the colors will last through many washings. Plus, you're supporting an Indiana-based company that came up through Kelly. What could be better than that? Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME for 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. Okay, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts for the rest of our team. Ryan, you got a rant or a rumination or a revelation, or what do you got for us tonight?
Tonight it was all about Xavier Johnson. Let's give him the credit he deserves. He came out. I tweeted 2 minutes into the game, this is a different Xavier Johnson. Like, he just looked focused and determined, and there was just, you talk about players being locked in, and that's what he was. And it just looked like he had this other level of focus tonight that we haven't seen over the last couple of days. His grandfather died, and he's really been out of it. But, I'm sure that has affected him, of course. But tonight he was everything you want an upperclassman point guard to be. 24 points, 7 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from 3-point, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. That late free throw he missed kept him from being perfect. I'm sure it's going to eat him up. You saw him almost punch the ball when he missed it. 1 rebound, 6 assists. He had 3 turnovers. One of those was just, late in the game, trying to be razzle-dazzle, threw it right out of bounds. So none of the turnovers were particularly egregious, and a steal. And he did all that. He had 24 points in 27 minutes. He was what you expect, what you want him to be tonight. And quite frankly, he could even be a notch below that, and Indiana still wins. And that's the thing. When he is rolling, Indiana is so much better. When he can get into the lane and cause the defense to collapse, Mike Woodson's offense is so reliant on ISO ball and driving from the point that if he can get into the lane and actually get past that first level of the defense, it opens everything else up. You saw Parker Stewart He hit him for a couple threes just by breaking down the defense. Now, Stewart was 1 for 6 from 3, but you're getting him open looks. And I think Kopp had one as well. I mean, he only made 5 threes in this game, and 3 of them were Johnson, but he was attacking so much. You scored 44 points in the paint, and most of that was because Johnson was throwing the defense off. You're also getting great post entries to Race Thompson and all of that, but you're really seeing when he is at his best, the level he takes Indiana to. And Indiana looks like a much better. Now, again, this was Maryland, but at the same time, when he plays with that kind of confidence and focus, we've seen Indiana be a different team. And so we talk about Race Thompson, and Jared is finally giving me my props in a minute. That Race Thompson is the most important player on this team because of what he provides. You could easily make the argument that Xavier Johnson is right there with him. When he is at an elite level, Indiana is a different basketball team. And maybe he came in with confidence because they were playing Maryland, not a top 25 team. But if he can carry this over and just be the point guard, the star point guard, this team's fortunes change, and they just do. And in Indiana's best performances this year, Xavier Johnson has been at his best, and that's what needs to continue. I mean, they got their backs against the wall. They are up against it to make the NCAA tournament. Today's win, not going to move the needle a whole lot. It's a quad 3 win, but you need to take this and build on it towards the next game when you go to Minnesota, and then take it home against Rutgers. Rutgers is a team that can beat anybody in the Big Ten. They've proven that this year. So you have to win these next 2 games, and then you probably got to take one down in the Big Ten tournament too. So I would just say that Xavier Johnson over these next 3 games and then in the Big Ten tournament has to be at his best. Has to absolutely be at his best and carry this over.
We'll come back and talk about X a little bit more. Totally agree with that outstanding performance. And joining us is the famous host of the Doing the Work podcast of the IU women's basketball program, Kathy Amos, the Amos Angle with Kathy. What do you got for us?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for letting me crash your party tonight, guys. Hey, welcome to February winning. Hey, doesn't it feel good? It was a must needed win for us. Clearly, everyone, I think, that pays any attention to Indiana basketball or Big Ten basketball knew this was an absolute must win coming into it, and they got the job done. And the thing that impressed me the most, I thought, was obviously Xavier, which Ryan articulated very well in his play and what we really needed from him. And that was with sitting most of the first half, right? With the 2 fouls, one reach in, that was kind of just a silly reach in foul that he didn't need to do. But boy, he really came out and turned it on the second half. But I thought the whole team did in the second half. They missed their first 2 shots in that second half, and they ended up making their next 12 field goals in a row. We shot 75% field goal percentage in that second half. If you would say we shot 75% from the free throw line, we'd be ecstatic, but let alone field goal percentage an entire half. I thought that was it was just really nice to see. Clearly things that can still be cleaned up from the second half, but I really thought in particular the team came out and did, as you mentioned, Coach, the things that they needed to do to get this job done. And they did it as a team as well. So I know we'll break it all down when we get into the stats, so I won't talk too much about that. But just overall, I thought it was a great win and absolutely necessary. And hopefully then we can take it up to the barn with us.
And there's a couple storylines I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on. One is the offensive movement. We've been talking about movement. It's been in the community about sets versus actions versus just moving people helps the offense. And I thought tonight that was one of the better performances of offensive movement that we've seen of this Indiana Hoosier team. And all of a sudden you're getting shots. In the first half, Indiana missed some shots, some wide open shots, especially in that last 5 minutes, a couple wide open threes. And so the game was a little tight because it was just shot making. And then Xavier got going, and there wasn't as much need for some of that movement because he was playing well. But then they did some things, Ryan, some UCLA cuts into flex late to secure post ISO. They ran all kinds of circle motion where they would cut the inside cuts. And so people were moving a lot.
Dribble handoffs. Yeah.
Dribble handoff weaves. I mean, I wrote down almost every one of their actions. And yes, they relied on the post feed, but they were doing some movement off the post feed. Yes, they relied on the middle ball screen, but you saw Xavier Johnson reject or not take the screen and go downhill and create a layup for himself and one of those threes to Parker that you were referencing. those were all different things that we saw from this Indiana offense. And so I think I saw a lot of things that I liked offensively. And again, Indiana scores, again, Maryland, but it is progress, Ryan.
Yeah, and who would have thought after the last two regimes we'd be saying, "Oh, thank God, there's a dribble handoff weave at the top of the key." Oh God, we needed that. But I think that you also saw some block-to-block screening a little more than they've been doing. Instead of just having the post guy run down and get positioned, you saw some block-to-block screening. You saw some cuts across, UCLA cuts, as you said, and I think that. Also in the second half, as you said, when Xavier Johnson started to take over, you don't need as much movement when you're actually cutting them up in driving lanes. You don't want that movement because it can crowd the paint, actually. And you want them to collapse with your guys spread out. And that's what leads to that spacing that you need. So basically, I think our problem with the offense has been that the point guard has to dominate for it to work. And that hasn't been happening. Xavier Johnson has overall played pretty well this year in general, but he's not able to dice up every single defense he faces. And a lot of times when you face a team with a really good rim protector, they're not afraid of him going into the paint, so therefore they don't collapse defensively. When you get a team like Maryland that collapses defensively, that opens everything up for you and opens the offense to what it's supposed to be. So in the first half, when Xavier Johnson especially was on the bench, he only played 7 minutes in the first half. It's crazy he scored as much as he only played 7 minutes in the first half. They did move. And after Trace Jackson-Davis got his second foul, I thought the offense moved way better because I feel like there's a tendency, and I don't know if this is by design or if this is just the way guys are, when they just throw it into Trace Jackson-Davis and stand around and wait for him to do something. I think is a lot of times what this offense gets caught into. He went to the bench, and I felt like the offense flowed a lot better. I thought that guys moved a lot better, and I thought they played better offensively and defensively, because I think they almost had to ratchet their game up a little bit, knowing that they didn't have the big bad guy behind them. Now, the last 5 minutes of the first half, didn't play particularly well, took some rush shots, did miss some open three-pointers, as you noted, Coach. But at the same time, I thought that for a stretch there, they played really well and got a lot of movement and got a lot of open shots out of the offense, something we haven't seen very much. I feel like progressively they've been doing more of that, almost like they've kind of gotten the message that they need to do more movement on offense. But I do feel like you're right. I feel like that really got ratcheted up at the about the middle of the first half. There was movement. And early in the first half, there was some as well.
The nice thing about that, Ryan, is you had to once Xavier went out with the foul, because you really didn't have a point guard or a downhill guy to go off those ball screens. So you had to have some more action, a floppy action or X action where the guards crisscross underneath, then get pin screens. You're referencing that block-to-block stuff. I just thought it was really well organized and executed for the most part, short of some key turnovers at key points that led to some points for Maryland. So, Kathy, your thoughts on what you saw offensively tonight from the Indiana Hoosiers?
Yeah, I had a number of moments that I wrote down around really good ball movement, and I thought a lot of nice passing from some of our big guys. I had two plays in particular in that first half that Durr first found Race down low. Race went up and got a bucket.
Durr had some good minutes.
Really good minutes.
In that first half, yeah, and then didn't play in the second half. But in the first half, he looked great. And, right after that, we get the ball back and he finds Leal for an open three to go up 18-28. The unfortunate thing with that Leal shot was it was our last one in the half at 4:48 until Miller Kopp left, made that nice little 2-pointer with 5 seconds left to go. So that was a little nerve-wracking to see us in the half that way, and then for us to come back out and we immediately give up a three at the beginning of the second half to let them tie it. I got a little nervous with that, 5-minute or so stretch at the end of the first half leading into the second. But boy, we really turned around. And, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we missed our 2 shots in that second half, but then made 12 in a row and we lit it up and we got on fire, and we haven't seen that. And again, I look at the numbers, and I know we'll get into the stats, but it feels like we should have had way more assists than it looks like in there. And it just, as Jared likes to say, and viscerally felt like we had a lot more assists than this box score showed up outside of X. But I thought the ball was moving really nice And I did enjoy too a couple of passes that I saw TJD get it down low, get double teamed, and instead of trying to force it in, he went back out and he threw one out to X a couple of times. And then X ended up driving, so of course that was an assist. So there are a lot of plays like that where they don't show up in the box score per se, but it was just really great ball movement, I thought, that led to baskets by opening the floor more.
And the key going forward, I think, is when it comes down to crunch time against some better opponents and you're up 2 or 3, continue that ball movement, continue that player movement. I know TJD struggled tonight, and we can talk about that. But they did try to get him on the move. They got Race on the move too, as X was coming down off a ball screen. We call it C cuts, or he would cut from block to block, and he was wide open to get some dump off passes from X. So I thought overall offensively, it was just fun to watch tonight. And the last 2 nights, even in the loss to Ohio State, I thought Indiana was trying to do some different types of actions, whether they are set plays for certain people or just moving people and taking what happens off that movement. That's a good thing. The second storyline that I'd like to get your opinions on, and we'll start back with you, Kathy, is I thought the bench play was really key. You had Xavier with 2 fouls at the 7-minute mark, and you had Trace at 10:21 of the first half, both going to sit. And Indiana extended the lead short of that poor
Late
end
collapse.
to the half, but Durr had good minutes. Geronimo was active and did some good things. He made a few mistakes, had the shot of the year off a rebound slamming the ball. And
That's a
Anthony
horse
Leo,
shot you never make.
I know, yeah, exactly. You practice it all the time and at the end of practice. And I just thought Anthony Leo did some really nice things off the bench. And Tamar didn't really get a lot of stats, but Tamar's starting to feel like he can play a little better and he's confident. And I'm really enjoying watching the bench play. Kathy, your thoughts on Indiana's bench play? I thought it was very, very vital tonight.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, our bench outscored them 8-0 in the first half. So, and of course, we know that the name of the game is getting the ball in the hoop, but there's a lot more to it than just scoring baskets. And I thought, to your point, like I mentioned already, the couple of door shots that we had, I mean, I don't know how you don't get excited about a Jordan Geronimo rebound / basket, because that's what he got credit for.
It was a dribble. It was a dribble into the hoop.
Right. The ball went through the hoop. That was, I've never seen anything like that. It was crazy. I don't know how you don't get excited about that kind of play. The thing for me, and I guess maybe Coach, I'll ask you about this too. I thought we'd see more of them in the second half. So X played 7 minutes, sat because of foul trouble. And then again, he ended up playing the full 20 minutes. And I remember at the 1.5-minute mark, we're up 15, and he literally brings Miller Kopp back in with 1.5 minutes to go, and we're up 15. I didn't understand why we all of a sudden had 4 starters back there on the court, especially because our bench did play well. You mentioned Leal, that again, like he ended up with that 3-pointer, but he had nice movement and he was screening well. And Bates looks like he's got confidence shot. It didn't go down for him tonight. He ended up with just the 1 made field goal, but he looks still confident taking that. And I didn't think their defense was really that bad either. So I was really surprised when we didn't see much bench play in that second.
Real quick, and I know Ryan wants to comment. One, when X is playing like he's playing, you're not gonna. There's some minutes you're not gonna get. And then Race was playing well too, short of a couple passes that he made. Race had 19 points, so I can understand it. But I thought that same thing with Leo, but he trusted Leo down the stretch when it was finishing time. Right. Did you notice that Leo came in at 8 minutes? And so that was a sign too. And Geronimo got a little bit of run. Bates got a little bit of run. The only one who sat in the second half that I thought played well was Durr. Sometimes when your studs have to sit out, they're going to get major minutes in the second half. So I didn't have an issue like I have had in the past with that. And obviously when you win, you don't have as many issues with the rotation.
Look,
I thought, sorry.
Let me just say that I do think I get Race was playing great. Xavier was playing great. They both played the full second half. I do think you need to steal minutes for them at some point, even if it's you take them out in a stoppage before the under 8 or something.
2 minutes, a minute and a half.
Yeah. I think you need to do that. This team has been, and it worked out tonight. So, I mean, but he's done this a lot this year of just leave guys in for 19 minutes of the second half. And we have part of the reason you've seen Indiana collapse late. You look and you see these guys are exhausted. There was a game Race Thompson was barely making it up the floor. And Trace Jackson Davis loses his concentration at the free throw line late. You've seen that. And so I do think that it needs to be a habit, even in a game you're winning, of trying to build in breaks for these guys so they can finish strong. Now, they finished strong tonight. So the criticism doesn't hold tonight. But when you've got a competent guys behind them, I mean, Geronimo could have played more than 5 minutes in the second half. He absolutely could have.
You wonder if that's some of the late game struggles.
Yeah.
In these tight games.
Durr was pretty darn good tonight. He missed one shot, that I think he took too early. Probably should have. He hit the front of the rim. I thought the defender was in good position. He should have kicked it out and reposted. But other than that, he was passing the ball well. He's kind of skilled, and he gets in the way a lot defensively. He's a 7-footer, doesn't block shots, but he gets in the way. Mm-hmm. And so I do think you need to rely on your bench. Like, the bench had 0 points in the second half. I do think you need to rely on them a little bit more. Bates and Leal got some run in the second half, and he did trust Leal in winning time over Parker Stewart for a long stretch. So, and then Leal made that turnover late, or Bates made that turnover late against the press, and you saw Parker come back in. But I do think that Woodson, it's late in the season. These guys are going to be worn down a little bit. I think he needs to rely on the bench a little bit more and build in 2 minutes here for Trace, 2 minutes here for Race, maybe an extra. I know Johnson, with no backup point guard, essentially, it's hard to take him out. But you've got to find ways to maybe build in a little bit of extra rest. Now, again, it paid off tonight. But you've seen their late game struggles. And I if you're struggling and the other team makes a run late and you're tired, it's really hard to get back up and focus.
Yeah, those are exactly a lot of the points I was going to make. I know, Coach, you're like, oh, well, X is playing that well, you don't take him out. But I also think you've got to find a way to steal. He played all 20 minutes in the second half. And I understand how well he was playing, but when you have that big of a lead, you got to find a way, don't you, to steal minutes here and there. And that was my point with the bench. And to Ryan's point, we outscored them 0-8 in the first half, and then they outscored us 11-0 in the second half. So,
you guys make good points, but he had 13 minutes of rest in the first half and halftime. So,
that's true.
Yeah, no, for
the
sure.
The question becomes when he
plays
plays more in the first half. You can't play him 18, 19 minutes. You're going to have to, 16, 17 minutes, keep him fresh is a very valid point.
And honestly, Xavier tonight, it made sense to leave him in because the way he was playing and the rest he got in the first half. So that's not a complaint. I'm just, in general in these games, that's what we've seen. And, TJ.
Especially when they play well.
Yeah, TJD playing 18, 19 minutes a half in both halves it's too much.
So coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over Maryland, we'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed. Then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Brian Tonsoni here with Ryan Phillips and Kathy Amos, and we're breaking down Indiana's victory tonight against Maryland. It's time now for a meaningful moment that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Man, I think there's a lot of meaningful moments tonight in the game, but I'm going to focus on this one first, and then I'm going to let you guys share your moments. But there were two passes that Anthony Leal made tonight that were absolutely on point, firing diagonal passes through traffic that found its way. Did he get credit for all of those assists? I don't have the stats up if he got both of those made baskets. Just one, but he had some incredible passes, and I'm just the last couple games Leo has been ready when his number's called, and that's what you want from an Indiana player. It has to be tough not getting a lot of run, but when he's got in there, I thought he's been outstanding. But those two passes I thought were really, really outstanding visionary plays from a guy who hadn't gotten a lot of minutes. Thoughts on Leal?
Yeah, the one that I loved was they kicked the ball in the corner for a three, and it was an open three, but he didn't catch the ball cleanly. And an immature guy would have just fired it up without a grip on it. There was a guy closing out hard to him. He said, "Nope, not taking this shot. I didn't catch it cleanly." Took a couple dribbles towards the middle. He was in the left corner. took a couple dribbles to the middle and fired a perfect pass to Race Thompson for a layup. And that's maturity. That is a mature offensive decision instead of just, launching a three where you're not set for it. And I think Anthony Leal earlier in the season, maybe last year too, would have just fired that three because he feels the pressure to be a 3-point shooter. And the whole crowd was upset that he didn't take the shot. And it's, no, I don't have this. This is not going to work. I'm going to move. And because that guy closed out so hard, the defense started scrambling to get out to him. That left Race Thompson open. Perfect pass and a finish for Race. That's maturity. That is a mature offensive play. And you want to see more than that from this team, especially from the guys who aren't in their second year aren't in their second year of college basketball. The guys who are older, you want to see more of those types of decisions.
Kathy, your thoughts on Leal's play tonight?
Yeah, I thought Leal did all the things that don't show up in the stat line, right? That's the perfect example Ryan had. I had a similar one written down as well, where he passes up the three, and he passes it off to Race, who gets a layup. So he doesn't get credit for the assist. He ends up with only one. But again, watching the game, it felt more than that. And this is where I think he's the type of guy where people will look at his stat line and not watch the game, and they'll judge him by that. And I just, that makes me sad when people do that. And Leal's a perfect example of that. I enjoy watching Leal all the time because, as soon as he steps on that court, he's going to give you 125%, and he's going to go until he's taken out. And when he's taken out, he's going to give you 125%, being the big cheerleader on the bench. And so I love everything about Anthony Leal's game, and just seems like a stand-up gentleman as well.
Yeah, and here's another one. He kind of struggled in the first half guarding the bounce, but he kept chesting the guy and made it a difficult shot a couple times. But the best defensive play that Leal made was at the 8-minute mark when Ayala, one of their best players, was trying to crab dribble him down into the post, and he just was very strong, stuck his chest out, and forced Ayala to travel. And those are key moments, because I don't have the score down, but it was 58-50. Well, it was 58-50 at the 8-minute mark, and that was the first play out of the timeout. And he comes down and makes a great defensive play. Again, that's not in the stat sheet. So, Ryan, I know you're thinking about another meaningful moment because it looked like I stole yours.
You did, but I've got one.
Okay, we'll go to you then for yours, and then we'll go to Kathy for hers.
At 9:53, Julian Reese scored a bucket to make it 53-50. Xavier Johnson came down, hit a three, and then they stole the ball, and then he got a steal on the breakaway. He could have gone up and finished this, or tried to finish it, but he would have gotten fouled, probably ended up at the free throw line, or missed it, got blocked, whatever. He laid it off to Miller Kopp, who had a wide open dunk. That made it 58-50. After that, Maryland never got closer than 6 points. That breakaway and that decision to be unselfish there got an easy bucket instead of a free throw line. You never know what's going to happen with this team. When you go to the free throw line, you never know what's going to happen. So you got the sure points by laying it off instead of going for it yourself. And, Kopp finished with the dunk. And I think that sequence there with that made three and then that breakaway, that steal by Xavier, and then that layoff for the dunk was the biggest sequence of the night, because Maryland, that basically, with 8:27 left, they were down 8 points. They wound up getting a 2-pointer from Fats Russell that I don't know how it went in on a step back. But after that, Xavier made 2 free throws. Race had a bucket. Like, they extended the lead out to 12 and really held it about there for the rest of the game. But those 2 back-to-back plays by X, I think, really sealed the game.
And what's so good about that, from my vantage point, was that he threw it back instead of across, because that defender was not committed to him. He could have played either X his drive and fouled, or if he dishes off across the lane, could have blocked or fouled, and you're going to the foul line, exactly as you said. But he knew the advantage was that guy couldn't stop and guard Miller Kopp. He made the right decision, and he had good vision on the break. But those are key moments. Kathy, your meaningful moment.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go back to the start of the game and go back to the 19:15 mark at the beginning, where we actually had really good defense to start off and stopped Maryland from scoring. And then we went back down on the other end, and TJD found Race wide open for a 2. And that I go back to that because I wrote down, is this going to set the tone? Are we going to have good defense, and are we going to have good ball movement? And I thought both of those actually came to fruition in this game. In particular, the passing. I mean, we talked about that. We had, or being aggressive in general, because we followed up soon after that, 17-11. Kopp passed it up a 3-pointer that he probably could shot, maybe not the best, but he ended up driving and making 2. So I thought that play from Miller Kopp also showed some nice, again, just like basketball IQ to not force the shot, and seemed to be like we were flowing more tonight instead of playing tight and forcing it. There was a number of times we have, I already mentioned the couple of passes from Durr, but about 10.5 minutes left in that first half as well. Jordan Geronimo tips the ball out to Parker Stewart, who drives the ball. He didn't get the shot, but it was called goaltending, so he gets the bucket there. So again, just a lot of good heads up basketball IQ plays, I thought, from our big guys in particular. So that's why I wanted to point out the TJD. And then Durr, I had already mentioned, with a couple of really great passes from him in that first half, and then Jordan Geronimo. So those are a couple from the first half that I had written down.
Let's talk about the defense, because it's been just a really good, solid part of this Indiana basketball team this year. But I thought tonight was another example of defense really setting the tone. And, you withstand a Fats Russell where he just, guys are going to make shots. Some guys are tough shot makers, and when they have it that night, they're going to make your defense look that way. But again, only giving up 64 points when a guy's going off is solid. You mentioned the early stop at the 19:15 mark, but there was a time when I think Maryland only scored 2 points over 11 minutes inside the game. The defense has just been a pleasure. You got shot blockers inside. You got, Race does a really outstanding job positionally and blocking shots, getting steals, and he's just the junkyard dog on defense.
Race is unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it is just fun to watch this team guard.
He works
in most games.
Race works so damn. I know TJD gets the credit for the blocks or anything. Race is a better defender than TJD.
Yeah.
He just is. Positionally, he's always in the right place. He helps everybody else out. If you ever see Race, closing out hard and not being there for a 3-point shot, that's because he was helping someone else. It's never because he lost his guy, on that. And against Ohio State, I know in that main play against EJ Liddell, he got lost and had a dunk. But Mike Woodson ripped into him because he never does that. So, why did it happen this time? That was sort of the reaction. And
right.
Race just works his tail off at all times, and it's so impressive to watch. And, TJD flies in for the weak side blocks or whatever, but most of the time he's able to do that because Race has good position on his guy, and, TJD can leave his. And so to look at the points in the paint, 44 for Indiana and 24 for Maryland, it was just a great job of keeping them out of the lane, first of all, with the on-ball defense, and secondly, discouraging those shots with Race and Trace on the inside. And Durr, when he was in there as well, had a couple nice plays where guys went into the lane, and he just didn't give them a spot to take the shot.
Yeah, I think we need to talk a little bit more about Race. We haven't mentioned him a whole lot, but he had a fantastic game. We don't win this game without him, right? And it's because he's become
one quiet. Right?
Yes, it was a quiet 19 points, but it's almost like we are just, again, we're coming to expect that of him. And so maybe we're not giving him the love that maybe he should deserve. I mean, he 19 points on 9 of 12 shooting. I thought Race was fantastic tonight.
It's to the point where when he does make a mistake, you're shocked.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He
makes a lackadaisical pass, and you're like, Race did that. It's just, you don't expect Race to ever make a mistake because he just plays so hard. It's just great. All right, let's go inside the numbers. This segment is sponsored by the Power Rank, where our friend Ed uses data and analytics to make accurate football and college basketball prediction. He also writes an incredible March Madness guide every year, which we'll have a special offer for you once March rolls around. For now, if you want sports betting advice with a PhD edge, or if you just like understanding sports at a more analytical level, you should subscribe to Ed's free newsletter. Go to thepowerrank.com/AC to subscribe. That's thepowerrank.com/AC. Okay, let's dissect the numbers that tell the story of this game. And for me, and we'll start with you, Kathy, I'll just go 59.6 shooting from the field, led by Xavier Johnson, 7 for 7, Thompson, 9 for 12. When you are taking good shots in rhythm and shots that you expect to make, you're going to make a lot more. And in this 5-game losing streak, the offense has really struggled. And early in the losing streak, we thought it was movement and execution and play design. Later in the streak, it was just shot making. all of those things seem to be working tonight against Maryland, and let's hope that's a sign for it to continue. But for me, the 59.6 from the field, 38.5 on limited numbers of threes. Indiana only hit 5 threes, 15 assists. Those numbers speak why Indiana was able to put up 74 points. Your thoughts on our shooting performance, Kathy?
Yeah, I already mentioned it once, and I'm just going to repeat it because it's just fun to say. 75% field goal shooting in the second half. I don't think we'll ever see numbers like that again. I get that, but my goodness, how fun!
Maryland shot 50% too. Hey, the shots were going down in the second half.
Yeah, they were going down.
There are all kinds of bounces tonight too. That Maryland had that three right after
Jordan Geronimo's
right
rebound shot.
What do you contribute, both of you? What do you contribute to shooting? Just confidence, just a better focus, better offensive movement. Well, what would you think from viewing the game tonight was the reason Indiana shot the ball the way they did?
I think it was shot selection. I think they were a lot easier shots. We didn't overshoot the three, only 13 3-pointers, and they were easier shots. We were, Ryan's mentioned this a couple of times, and I think I'll repeat it again, 44 points in the paint, and then another what did we have? 13 points from the foul line. So we were driving the ball, we were getting the ball in the paint, and we were making the shots too. Let me quickly look at what our layups were, but I think they were actually pretty good this time. Yeah, 12 of 13 according to the stat line. So, in other games in the past, we've seen that layup number not be 12 of 13. So I think just in general, for me, I thought it was ball movement that led to better shot selection and easier shots that just went down for us tonight.
Ryan, you're the shot doctor. Why did the shots go in?
Shot selection is Kathy nailed it. I just thought they were either getting layups or they were getting, good, clean looks and or floaters. I just thought it was, and Xavier Johnson, just penetrating, as I said, opened the floor up. Also, Maryland's not very good. I think they kind of let.
They won 2 in a row, and they took Purdue down the wire.
It's true, but
Sundays ago,
I just felt like they kind of wilted defensively in the second. This is the second half.
First half too, right? Until they made that run, with about 7 or so minutes, I felt like Maryland looked unengaged on defense too. But I don't want to take away from our offense because again,
I think it was a combination of both, and also the stat I was going to point out, Coach, was 12 of 13 on layups. Indiana made its layups, and when it loses, they go like 4 of 12 on layups. And so. That was the stat I was going to point out is they made their easy baskets tonight. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And there were easy baskets to be had. If Johnson is playing the way he is, the defense is going to help out on him, and that's going to leave open players. And so I thought that was one of the biggest things. Also, I love the 15 assists. We haven't seen the assist numbers up in a while. 15 assists on 28 made field goals. That's more than 50%. Only 12 personal fouls. Now, I know that had to do with, the way the game was called. Indiana can't really control that because I felt they played aggressive defense, but you didn't see a lot of the silly fouls that you've seen from this team 35 feet from the basket, bodying a guy 35 feet from the basket. And only 11 turnovers was another one. They kept that down despite the fact that they were moving the ball really well and moving the ball a lot and moving much quicker. So those are the stats that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I had the turnovers too. In particular, the points off of turnovers, because I sometimes you can get forced turnovers, but don't lead them into points. But we forced 16 turnovers, or Maryland committed 16, however you like to look at it. But we turned those into 22 points too, versus only the 10 points off a turnover for Maryland as well. So that was definitely a stat. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Coach.
No, I was just going to say about the turnovers. Excellent overall numbers, but Indiana still needs to fix some of the nonchalant passing. Yeah. That happens.
Like behind the back passes?
The behind the back pass into a 3-2 zone by Miller Kopp, inexcusable. The sloppy weave pass that led to a breakaway and then an intentional foul, which again took a 10-point lead down. And luckily they didn't convert all of that, or it could have been a tie game at halftime, right?
This drove me crazy. Was end of the first half, they drew up a play out of the timeout, and Tamar just drove it into 3 guys. And lost the ball, and it was a breakaway.
Yeah.
So
we only had 11 turnovers, but some of them were just careless. Race, as wonderful as Race was, had one, thrown out of the post. Those things need to be fixed because I think those are some of the things that have hurt Indiana in late games.
Yeah, and what
one key turnover, 2 key turnovers, because you don't get an attempt. It's one thing to go 1 of 11 down the stretch and you had shots and you missed it. It's another thing when you have limited opportunities because, and boy, it worried me that last 4 minutes because we had 2 key turnovers in that, and I don't think they weren't aggressive. Yeah, they weren't aggressive. So that's the one thing out of tonight that I'd say kind of needs to be addressed, even with the low numbers of turnovers.
Yeah, that last 4:48 in the first half that we mentioned, where we didn't score again until Kopp shot that bucket. We had 5 missed shots. There were 2 of them were 3-pointers, but we also had 2 turnovers in that 4.5 minutes. So, it's not just the number of turnovers, but it's the timing. Although I would like to know, are there ever turnovers, Coach, that aren't careless?
Yeah, there are. From a coaching standpoint, a screen, a drive down the lane where you make the right read, but the ball just ticks off the hands or it was a little bit low. The execution was poor, but the idea was right.
There was one in the first half where on a breakaway, Xavier Johnson had Trace wide open and just threw it off his shoulder. It was just a bad angle, but it wasn't the wrong idea. He had the right guy. It just hit Race awkwardly and it went sideways. And that's just
aggressive.
Bad luck, kind of.
Yeah.
If you're aggressively throwing the pass and it just, you threw a little too hard, it goes off a guy's hands and but the nonchalant, just little shoveling that weave pass from Kopp at the end of the half, the defender was right there. Throw it to the outside hand, throw it with some pace. The behind the back stuff, that's just too cool for school. That's got to be eliminated in key moments because that's just a lost possession. Whether or not Maryland capitalized on it doesn't matter. You're going to play at Minnesota, Rutgers, Purdue, those things. I thought there were just too many of those if we're looking for something, to pick on,
and
I guess, tonight.
Kopp's at least third behind the back pass this year. One of them was good. So I guess maybe it got in his head that that's the way to do it.
Magic Johnson once held the record for most assists in the NBA, and he also had the most turnovers because he was being aggressive. So that's an example of you want, X had 3 turnovers today. That's perfect because he was aggressive on offense. He got in the flow. He had 6 assists, 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio is perfect. So you don't want people to play too safe, Kathy, either, and just keep the numbers low. But you don't want them to just jack around with the basketball. And I think we do. That's that little – I thought at one point at the end of the half that I'm like, this team's just soft. They don't have that killer instinct. They don't have that I'm going to throw the ball the right way. I'm going to take the shot. They have moments, lapses of softness, and it's hurt us recently. And I was just worried at the end of the first half that was creeping back up. But coming up here on the Assembly Call, we hand out our game balls and our Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss any lingering questions, and look ahead to Indiana's next opponent. That's all here next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hey, it's Romeo Langford. What's the only thing better than hitting a game winner to beat Wisconsin? Celebrate it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
Thanks, Romeo. We're celebrating again. It's been a long time since January 28th, but you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. Also, make sure you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 9,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. Join for free today at join.assemblycall.com. That's join.assemblycall.com. I'm Brian Tonsoni here with Ryan Phillips and Kathy Amos, and we're breaking down Indiana's victory over Maryland tonight in Bloomington, and it's now time for our game balls. Kathy, lead us off.
I think this is probably an easy one. I know he didn't play much in the first half, but I'm giving my game ball to Xavier. He was just everything in that second half we wanted, and even in his 7 minutes, he did play outside of the one reach and foul is the only, I think, negative to his play tonight. He had a couple of turnovers, and even one of them, to your point, he was being aggressive, and you could see he just wanted that back. But you can't. I mean, 7 for 7. 3 for 3 from 3-point line and 7 for 8 from the free throw line. I don't know how you ask any more from that, including 6 assists from your point guard. So easy for me. I'm giving X my game ball.
Ryan.
Xavier, no question. One of the easiest ones we've had all year. Even though Race had a great game, I mean, Xavier from the get-go was the reason Indiana won this game.
And not so much for his scoring either. I mean, his scoring was great, but what I loved was his direction of the offense. If he is given the reins to call stuff, I thought he called a better game. He also executed the middle ball screen to perfection by going off of it and attacking under control, playing off 2 feet. That dunk that he had was just absolutely phenomenal. You're going to let him get to the rim, he's going to dunk on you. If you cut in from the corners, he found Parker Stewart for Parker's only 3. He would drive, and the big would help up, and Race would cut block to block, and he found Race, which made those layups, which we were 12 of 13 on layups. It made those layups and those short little floaters much easier when you don't have to go around people as you do sometimes when you post up. And we've talked about Trace Jackson Davis going, around people instead of getting good angles. It allowed our post players to get good angles. And I just thought he had poise. So I think when he plays with poise, his athletic ability takes over and he's focused. He can be a one of the better point guards, I believe, in the Big Ten. So pretty unanimous. I think the chat mob all does that. Race, obviously, another outstanding performance as well. But now it's time for our Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calbert Cheney, Evansville Security Services provides off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals throughout Indiana. Remember, prevention cannot be measured, so let Evansville Security Services help you prevent a bad outcome today. Go to evansvillesecurityservices.com to learn more. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com. Ryan, who gets the Hoosier Hustle Award?
It's got to be Race Thompson, I think. I mean, we could pretty much rename this after him when he leaves Indiana. 9 of 12 from the field, 9 rebounds and assists. He did have 2 turnovers, but you just felt like he was everywhere on defense. And he played 38 minutes. I mean, and again, 19 and 9, and it felt quiet because Xavier Johnson was doing everything. But it just felt like everything was easy for him tonight. I just think that he continues to be the engine that drives this team. He was plus 11 on the night, which was tied with Xavier for the most. Xavier and Anthony Leal. Flawed stat, of course, as we know, but the team is always better when Race is on the floor, and I thought he had one of his, more determined performances of the season tonight.
Kathy, who gets your Hustle Award?
Yeah, it's Race for me as well. I wrote his name down pretty early. He was going to get one of these 2 awards before X just went off in the second half for sure. Race, we kind of talked about it. It seemed like a quiet 19 points, if you can call 19 points quiet. He just did, again, Race things, and by far our most important player we have right now.
I'm just going to throw a vote out for Anthony Leal. His ability to come in and get some run at point guard late in the second half. I know they tried Parker Stewart there when X first went out, and he was struggling a little bit as Maryland went to a little bit of zone pressure in that first half. But I thought Anthony came in and was able to get Indiana into offense. We talked about those passes, his defense on Ayala, and even the times when he struggled defensively, he stayed with it, chested his guy up, and contested the shots. And I think only one time when he got beat off the drive did they score. The rest were missed shots that were cleaned up by Race or TJD. And I just think that you guys both talked about his decision on the one pass where he gave up a 3 because he didn't. That's mental hustle. Sometimes we talk about, I talk a lot about fake hustle on closeouts and things like that. But your ability to think properly is a sort of a hustle out there. And he really does that. You can tell he's an Indiana Mr. Basketball and played good high school basketball for a good high school coach because he maximizes his ability and he's not afraid to do some of the little things. So I'll throw a vote out there just so we can talk about him again. So it's now time for any lingering questions. If you have a question in the chat mob, go ahead and send it in. We'll try to keep track of that. And meanwhile, Ryan, Kathy, do you have any questions you want to throw out for the panel?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. What what are your thoughts, Coach, on TJD's play here recently, specifically today? I know he ended up with 10 points, but only 5 rebounds. I felt, again, he was hunting blocks. He ended up with 2 of them. He had the one good game. My brain's escaping me, just a couple games back where he had 30, but ever since it seems like around maybe the Nebraska game at Nebraska, it just seems like we've kind of lost him and not to the All-American status player that we've been seeing. So what are your thoughts on TJD?
TJD is not a back to the basket basketball player in the Big Ten with the size that's in the Big Ten. He can do some things with his back to the basket, but he's better off pick and rolls moves, the alley-oop dunk that off the screen and roll where X came, throw it up to him. That's how he's going to get his points. And I think teams have figured that out and now are allowing him to catch with his back to the basket and aren't sometimes bringing doubles. Some teams don't bring doubles. And I think it's really kind of messed with him because there's good coaches in the Big Ten. The thing I was happy about with TJD is sometimes when he gets those 2 fouls or he struggles early, it's hard for him to get back engaged when he comes in the second half. And I thought he didn't let his first half foul troubles or his first half offensive troubles bother him. I thought he was active in the shot blocking. I thought he had a really nice rebound late where he went up and got some things. I was worried a little bit early in the second half because I didn't think he was in tune defensively early in the second half. But players go through slumps, whether you're a baseball player, basketball player, and he might be in the middle of one where things just aren't going for him. And what he's got to do is stay the course and believe in himself and then find ways to get some points, make his free throws, do those things. He's a heck of a talent. And when he plays well, we're okay. And just like the Wisconsin game, he got 30. He just needs to be consistent, which has been a problem for a lot of everyone who's not named Race Thompson on his basketball team. Probably needs to be consistent. So, you can lose a little confidence even if you're an All-American too in what happens when things are struggling. And when you're the main person on the scouting report, that's tough mentally night in and night out. So I was actually happy with the way he responded in the second half and did a lot of the non-stat things tonight to help his team win. And all of this will just help free him up a little bit more if they got a guard X on the scouting report and, if you got, some other players doing some things.
Well, the other thing about TJD is when he's bad, he shoots a lot and has a low percentage. He only shot 6 times tonight. Now, again, you think he has to shoot more, for Indiana to be great. But in 25 minutes, he took 6 shots. He didn't force much because he didn't need to. And I feel like that has a lot to do with it. You feel like when he's going bad, he forces bad shots, and he's usually playing somebody bigger than him, and he's forcing bad shots around guys instead of going over or through guys. I agree that he's more of a threat in a face-up position, but as we've said, as Trace has said himself, that Woodson wants him to be a back-to-the-basket guy. And okay, but at the same time, when you're facing Kofi Coburn, being a back-to-the-basket guy is a dumb, is a dumb strategy. When you're facing guys that are, Zach Edey, it's a dumb strategy. And so I would say that I think that he's at his best when he is picking his spots better than he is. But he can only do that if the guys around him play well. If nobody else is playing well, you've got to force feed Trace and try and get him to score. But when Johnson's playing the way he is, Trace can kind of pick his spots a little bit better. And I thought that's what he did tonight.
Yeah, I thought the second half from Trace, actually, he did a lot of things that didn't show up. So even though, it seems like he's struggling, and that's why I wanted to ask the question, I thought in particular the second half, he didn't force things. And I was surprised to see he ended up with only a couple of assists because it felt like he had a lot more where he wasn't forcing it. He'd get the ball, he was double teamed, and he'd find an open player instead. And I think what was happening, they were driving, so he wasn't getting those assist numbers. But I thought he was impacting the game in non-stat line ways tonight. And so I'm fine with that. We didn't need him to be the scorer tonight, and he wasn't forcing it. So we did have on a topic change from Brett Stallman. He wants to know thoughts on the auto bench with 2 fouls.
It's a personal preference for a coach, especially if you're up 10. I think you keep guys on the bench a little bit longer. When you decide not to auto bench is when the game could get away from you early in the first half. And it comes down to knowing your players too. you could have a good player and not trust him to get that third foul. But I know there's a lot of anxiety about it and everything. And if you develop your team, you should be able to withstand that in the first half. But the argument is you're benching them as a coach, not the fouls, by sitting someone for 10 or 13 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, having a fresh Xavier kind of helped tonight in some ways. So we're auto bench unless we get in trouble and need someone, and we feel the flow of the game is in jeopardy. Then we'll put our better players back in at our level. So I'm okay with it.
Jared is not. So.
Jared is not. No,
No.
we're not sure about that, but I
Jared hates it.
Yes, I am too. And X got his second foul rather with 13 minutes left in that first half. I don't think we could afford to have him get his third foul within that 13 minutes. Where I might have liked to see deviate from it is maybe call a timeout again during that run that Maryland was having with the 4:48. After that 4:48 mark, that might be a place where I would have liked to seen him come back in perhaps and try to help thwart that run. We ended up going into halftime with only a 3-point lead. And I think there was probably a little nervousness, at least in my household, about that. But overall, I thought it was fine. We didn't, and TJD went out with 10 minutes left in that first half. But
there's a couple good questions about if Armand and El either combined or individually, one of them would have stayed. What kind of impact would that have on the team? Ryan, your thoughts on that?
First of all, I think Al needed to go get, developed by a guy like Ed Cooley. Now, look, Al's shooting percentages across the board are down, but his points per game are up. They're a very guard-heavy offense at Providence, and I think that he's benefited from that, maybe being able to take more shots. Armand Franklin, I think, would have benefited from staying. I understand why he wanted a change of scenery, maybe to get out of Indiana because he, was an Indiana kid, and there's a certain amount of pressure on Indiana kids. We love Armand. And again, you're going to play for Tony Bennett, who has won a national championship and has had guards, reach the pinnacle of college basketball. That said, I think he would have really benefited from staying. I think that this more open offense would have been better for him. I think his shooting would have developed better than it has at Virginia. He has not shot the ball well. I thought his shot was on an upward trajectory, but when you go to a new place and have to develop new, with a new development team around you and stuff like that, Indiana kept Cliff Marshall. They kept their physical development program. So I think he would have benefited from staying. But again, when he left, it looked like, well, he's trading up by going to Virginia, quite frankly. And I think that, in a way, he's playing in the ACC, which is a great conference. He's playing for a team that won a national title a few years ago, for a coach that won a national title. The move made sense, and they didn't have guard depth. And so the move made sense at the time. I do think that he would be a huge lift to this team, though, and will be and we honestly, we probably wouldn't have all the guys we do, though, if Armand was here, because somebody probably would have left.
It's a trade-off. I think both of those guys would have been nice downhill options, and where it would fit. And I'm not judging their choice. I'm proud of those guys, and I wish them well. But boy, it would have been nice to see X drive. They help off, you throw out, and if they close out, now Franklin drives, and then your post move, or L drives. Now maybe our shooting. The shooters we have are better, but the ability to shoot, they both could hit some threes and drive. It would have been really fascinating, I think, to see them play in a Mike Woodson system where it is spacing and drive with heavy point guard, heavy post up. The one ability that we have been lacking is that second side driver, where the ball gets kicked out, and if your shot is contested with a good closeout. Right now, Miller Kopp and those guys are very limited off the drive. That's just not their game. It would be Al Durham's game, and it would have been Armand Franklin's game. I think that would have been interesting to see in this kind of offense.
Yeah, and look, I think that if you ask both of them, they're probably happy with their decisions. Certainly Al. I mean, Providence is playing great. But I do think that, it would have been something that certainly Armand would have benefited from. I think Al played his 4 years here, and I think that a change of scenery, especially when you're not from Indiana, he's from Georgia,
I'm just talking strategy. what
For
L
Indiana.
brings. Yeah. He would have been that slasher. That's what he's doing for Providence. When I've watched Providence games, is he's slashing little pull-up twos, tough shot maker. And he did some of that when he was here.
Made a big shot last night.
I'll never question. Yeah, big shot, turnaround jumper on that backside. But from a pure X and O, I would have loved to have seen that kind of basketball player in this system in the first
Fits the
year.
System well. Yeah.
I think both those players would have fit this system well, because I think defensively they would have gained from his knowledge and up their defensive ability and also been able to do some things offensively. Any other questions that you guys have, lingering questions? Obviously the one lingering question is, is Indiana going to make the tournament? And I think we really won't know until the regular season is over. If Indiana wins the next two, and whatever happens at Purdue, if they win at Purdue, I'm going to say they're going to be in. If they win the next two and lose at Purdue, then I think there's still more possibility of more work needs to be done, depending on the other teams on the bubble, where they're at. But a few people have Indiana in the play-in on a 12 seed, and a lot of bracketologists have Indiana in the first four out. So they are very much right there. The Big Ten tournament's going to seem more and more important that for a game or two for Indiana's selection. That's just where we're at. I'll take that.
Yeah, my lingering question is probably a lot more short term, and is this going to carry up to Minnesota?
Good point. That's a great question.
I don't even want to think about Purdue on the road. I just want to see, can they take this? We finally get our first win in the month of February, which is so sad. We're here, the 24th of February. It took us 24 days plus to get our win. We need to see if we can build some momentum up before I am at all concerned about if we can go up to Purdue and do this. I mean, let's show that we can go up to the barn and do it.
Very good point, because Indiana needs to string good play together. One game is not reason to say Indiana is in a great position. So, okay, It's time for our last call. I think I got to read here. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME at checkout for 15% off your first order. Okay, it's time for last call. Kathy, what are your closing thoughts on tonight's victory over Maryland?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what I was just talking about. It was great to finally see our first win here in February in Big Ten play, and I really just want to see us carry this momentum over. I don't expect to have a shooting night like we did again tonight. 60% from the field, I think is not something we could recreate, but it showed that we have the ability to have a good offense. Now, again, you take that with a grain of salt for who your opponent is and all of that, all those caveats. But I would hope that this is going to give them the confidence to understand what the system is, understand they can do it, and understand they can score. And let's see, can they get over this hump that they over, or is this going to be a blip in the road and we drop back down? So I'll be very curious and always optimistic and positive going into the next game.
Ryan, last thoughts.
This night belonged to Xavier Johnson. Let's not forget that. It's a win to stop a losing streak. You didn't beat a great team, but you won, and every win in the Big Ten is to be celebrated. What I will say is this team needs to, as it hasn't really done very much this season, is deal with this success and move forward in a positive way. And they have to go to the barn and win. I mean, that is a must win. You lose that game, I mean, coach, is the season over? I mean, the tournament basically goes out the window if you lose to Minnesota. And it's a road game, and this team has not played well on the road this year very often. So they need to carry this feeling, bottle this up, and move on and be able to throw it down. With all the positives tonight, they still only won by 10. And a 10-point win is great. Don't get me wrong, but this is a bad Maryland team. You've got to be able to put them away. And we saw at the end of the first half, really struggled to put them away. Second half at times, struggled to shut them down. Finally linked in the lead at the end, put it away happily. They've got to build on this and get better, though. This isn't a everything's great because they beat Maryland by 10. No, they need to build on this and continue to improve and make sure you can, do the same thing to Minnesota, and then against Rutgers, build on that. Do it to Rutgers, a better team. You've got to start building on some of the success when you do have it, and they can't relax. They can't relax. It's all hands on deck right now for the rest of the season. Everybody's got to be at their best, and everybody's got to step up. When somebody isn't at their best, somebody else has to step up and come through. Xavier Johnson stepped up and came through tonight, and he needs to continue to do so. And guys like Grace Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, Parker Stewart's got to hit more of those shots when he gets them. Everybody's got to continue to step up down the stretch.
I think that's very, very important, Ryan. You can't just count on your point guards going off. Rob against Purdue, Xavier tonight, or Trace Jackson Davis. You want to have some balance. Did have 2 outstanding scoring performances tonight. That's nice to have, but you want to see everyone playing their best basketball, regardless of stats. So Parker Stewart needs to shoot. We need guys coming off the bench to play well. We had a lot of that today from a lot of players, but you still want to see it. You still want to see it on the road. And it still needs to carry forward into the next game. So that's going to do it for us tonight on the postgame show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall.com. And don't forget to go to join.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design.com for designing our logo, and thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Sunday night. Until then,
take it from me, Jordan Halls. Keep your elbow in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Hey, the show's over. Here I come, Coach Tonsoni.
And also, just a real quick plug, if I can, for me and Jeff. The women do play yet. So we have a game tomorrow night, our last regular season game against Maryland. So it doesn't impact Big Ten regular season standings anymore. That's kind of slipped away from us today. However, it does have a big impact on our potential seeding in the Big Ten tournament. So we lose that game, we have a real possibility of having the 5th seed overall. We win the game, we most likely get that double bye, which is important, especially with as much as they've been playing. So just putting a plug in there for our women playing tomorrow night. And then Jeff and I will be going live after that as well. So if you don't have anything to do on a Friday night, please check out our women and then come hang out with Jeff and I in the live chat there too.
And it doesn't hurt to hang out with Kathy as much as you might think. But Kathy and Jeff are doing a great job with the Doing the Work podcast. We thank you, Kathy and Jeff, when you listen to the podcast. Thank you for doing that, and congratulations to the women. I know it's been a struggle here down the stretch, but a lot to play for yet on the women's side. And thanks to Ryan and Kathy. Appreciate you guys. And, again, everyone in the chat mob, thank you for joining us. It's nice to do so again with a win. So IU plays Sunday, right?
Yep, they play Minnesota Sunday, and then Rutgers is Wednesday next week.
All right. We'll see everyone on Sunday. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.